what is the most aggressive assumption? I mean, what is the fundamental kind of object that's the problem? Well, those of you who did the reading know the fundamental object is this thing about the rate of return that they're assuming on the assets. So I want to give a little example here. This is a Finance 101 example. In Scott's introduction, he mentioned that I'm also a professor at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And this is the kind of really advanced finance that we teach in our courses. Okay, you ready? You ready for this? All right, here we go. Okay, really. All right. So I'm going to give a little example, all right? So suppose you borrow $100,000 due in 2028, so about 10 years from now, with 0 interest. You got a deal, you can borrow with no interest. So basically you've incurred a liability where you have to repay $100,000 in 9 or 10 years' time, say 10 years' time. You spend half of it on a vacation. It's gone. There's the vacation, right? There's a great vacation, think about it, 50 grand for a vacation. I mean, you can do something pretty nice with that. Okay, but it's gone. You've spent it. You might be thinking that sounds imprudent, but it might not be imprudent. Well, let's see. You invest the remaining $50,000 in a portfolio of stocks and bonds. Here are stocks and bonds. Okay, so remember, you borrowed 100 grand. It's due in 10 years. You spent half of it on a vacation. That money's gone. The rest of it is in a portfolio of stocks and bonds. And a week later, you find yourself in a position where you need to disclose to a bank your assets and your liabilities. Why? Well, if you go to a bank and you want to, say, buy a house, so let's say you're house shopping at the same time and you saw this nice California house here that you want to buy, you have to tell the bank what are your assets and what are your liabilities. You have to give a financial report about yourself. Okay, so you don't own the house yet. You just saw the house in the neighborhood. You thought it looked nice. You went into the bank and you told the bank you want to get you want them to check up on your financial condition, whether you're eligible to maybe take out a mortgage to buy this house. All right. So the bank is going to ask you. They want to know your assets and your liabilities. They want to be able to calculate your net worth. This is what happens anytime you go and apply, not just for a home loan, but for any kind of loan, a car loan. I mean, any kind of loan. You have to write down what are your assets and what are your liabilities. Now, suppose that you have no other assets and you have no other liabilities other than what is on this slide. $100,000 borrowing, spend half of it on a vacation, gone. Remaining $50,000 is in a portfolio of stocks and bonds. I'm going to ask you a question now. What is your net worth in this example? Assuming you have no other assets, which of the following is closest to your net worth in this example that the bank is going to calculate for you? Ready? Go. Thank you. Okay. All right. That makes me really happy. Okay. All right. So, lock it. Can you lock it, please? Can you lock it? Because this is the thing that's the reason that I wanted to do it this way, is so that people do not get influenced by their peers. Peer influence can work in a number of different ways. It can move you towards a right answer. It can move you towards a wrong answer, right? Okay. So assuming you have no other assets, which of the following is closest to your net worth in this example? Most of you said negative $50,000, that you have a negative net worth of $50,000. The second answer that people gave was the plus $50,000. I'm guessing that a number of you there just thought, well, you've got these assets of $50,000 and you're going to ignore the $100,000 of debt. It's the net worth. That's the concept of net worth. And probably if we re-explain net worth, that you have to net out the debt, many of you would probably go with the negative 50, I think. You just made a sign error there. This would be a circumstance where if you reported anything other than negative 50,000 here, then you would actually probably go to prison if the bank caught you, right? Now, the other ones, negative 25,000 and plus 3,000, you are the people who might have a future as an actuary. So let's look at this a little bit more. Okay, so here I'm going to try to give you an argument that is going to support the one of these ones in the middle here. All right, so I'm going to you explain net worth. So let's just go. I'm going to go into this argument. I'm going to see if I can use an argument that might convince somebody that maybe the people who said it in the middle is right. All right. So here's what the actuaries say. They would say, well, what about your investments? What about these stocks and bonds? This is actual history right here. This is not some kind of sophistry argument. These are actual numbers. These are the actual returns that investors earned by investing in stocks and bonds over a long horizon, over a 90-year horizon. 1926 to 2016. Kind of finance people, we can talk later about the difference between the average annual return, the compound annualized return. Just focus on the right. It's arithmetic versus geometric means, but just focus on the right. Okay, so compound annualized return on common stocks, you would have earned a compound annualized return of 10% per year if you'd invested in common stocks over this long horizon. Just, the stock market. If you'd invested in bonds, government bonds, you would have earned 5.6%. And if you'd invested in a 60-40 portfolio of stocks and bonds, you would have earned a return of 8.2%, compound annualized return, 8.2% per year. So here is the actuary's reasoning. The actuary, well, let's say this is a friend, okay? This friend of yours provides some advice to you, all right? So the friend says, I have an idea for you. You go to this bank, you want to take out the mortgage. It seems like the rule is that you're supposed to report that you have a net worth of negative $50,000, but I have another strategy for you. Let's try the following argument, okay? Let's be conservative and assume that your investments will only grow at 7.5% per year. Why is that conservative? Well, we just saw that investments over like a 100-year period grew at over 8% per year. So our friend here, Chuck, wants us to be conservative. Okay, so we're going to assume 7.5%. And I will tell you, state and local governments, they assume 7.5%. And they praise themselves endlessly for being so prudent and conservative in their assumptions. This means that your money will more than double every 10 years. That's just 1.075 to the power of 10. So if you invest $1 now and you know you're going to get a 7.5% return per year, compound annualized, you will end up with more than $2 at the end of 10 years. So it seems that your $50,000 that you have in the stocks and bonds, that is going to be worth, it's going to be worth $103,000 in 10 years' time when your loan is due. Let's just say 2028. Okay, 10 years' time when your loan is due, 103. It's going to, because 7.5%, it's going to grow at that rate. You might even invest in some more aggressive strategies like hedge funds, private equity. You get even higher returns by investing in those things. So here is your friend's advice. Just ignore this debt. If anyone asks you about your finances, just ignore the $100,000. You don't even need to mention it, because your friend is telling you that 50 grand, it's going to grow at 7.5% per year. So when you report your assets and your liabilities, your net worth, you can actually report that you have a net surplus of $3,000 from this transaction. You can borrow $100,000, spend half of it on a vacation, invest the rest in stocks and bonds, and you can report a surplus. So I'm interested now. I want to know whether your friend changed your mind. I have no music, but can we activate the poll, please? Okay, the poll is now activated. It should update automatically on your phone. I want to know whether your friend changed your mind. Assuming you have no other assets, which of the following is closest to your net worth in the example? Did the friend's logic change your mind? You can also change your answer if you think, you can change your answer in any way you want. Okay, so it seems like, if anything, there are a few converts to the, okay, all right, lock it. There are a few, it seems like that was Charles Ponzi on the last slide, by the way. A few converts to his way of thinking about it. But in general, we seem to have converged on the negative 50,000 net worth. How could this is such a ridiculous argument. How could it be? But it is exactly what is going on here, right? Finance clearly says investment history does not matter for your net worth, nor do your expected returns matter for your net worth. Your $100,000 in liabilities and $50,000 in assets still leave you with negative $50,000 in net worth. You people who said negative $50,000, that is exactly right. That is what is taught in all of the nation's finest business schools. That is the only answer that is really consistent with finance logic. But actuaries, okay, actuaries say something different. Let's look at a very similar situation to our previous example, but our state government is going to be the borrower. And that example is this. The government borrows $100,000. Say you're the mayor now, and you've entered into a contract with your public safety, the police chief in your town, that they're going to get a pension when they retire. It really would be a pension for life of $100,000. Let's just say it's a one-year pension. You basically, instead of setting aside $100,000 now to meet it, or something a little less than $100,000, you spend $50,000 on current activities like paying for medical care, and you invest the remaining $50,000 in a pension fund of stocks and bonds and private equity and hedge funds. The general public wants to know your assets and liabilities. When you open, if a citizen of the city wants to know the financial condition of the city, and they open the report, what do you think? Now here, let's ask this question. Well, what is the most proper, accurate representation of his net worth? I'm not going to have you vote. I'm going to tell you that this example is the same as before. And the proper, most accurate representation would be negative 50,000, maybe you want to credit them a little bit for the time value of money that it's not due in 10 years. You might be able to come up with something like negative 40,000, maybe. I mean, you think about the yields on safe securities these days, they're about 1.5%. But what does the government do? We're not going to pull that one. We're just going to skip past it. What does the government do? The answer is A, by any logical reasoning. But how do governments report? They use your friend's logic. They report that if they do this, if you promise somebody a pension in 10 years' time, and the pension's $100,000, and you set aside $50,000, they will report that that is a surplus transaction for the state or local government. And that is why state and local government accounts, when you look at them and they claim they're running balanced budgets and that they have no debt or very little debt, they have massive amounts of debt to public employees because they are using false accounting, false financial logic. What is their defense? They're pointing, the actuaries always point, they say, look, the stock market has returned 8% per year since 1926. And by the way, we're investing in high quality stuff. You know, we're hiring really great investment professionals. I mean, some of them are investing in local golf courses, literally. But regardless, you know, it's fine if they want to say we're part of our plan for trying to repay this is to try to take some investment risk. But from a disclosure standpoint, in effect, state and local government accounts are a lie. They are not correct because they are not properly accounting for these promises. And not only are they not properly accounting for them, they're really just ignoring all the risk in these arrangements, and they are concealing the actual debt that state and local governments have. Okay, so that was just what I was talking about. They ignore risk. Who does this? Essentially, all state and local governments do this on your behalf. I mean, this is sort of happening out there. Again, it's a lot of money. California State Teachers Retirement System invests $270 billion. Sounds like it should be enough, but it's nowhere near enough because they're assuming that they're going to earn these 7.5%, 8% returns. New York, Texas, there are hundreds of these systems around the country. They're all making promises on behalf of the general public to public employees. Note, U.S. companies cannot make calculations like this. They must be much more prudent. U.S. companies, when they do their accounting, it is governed by financial accounting standards. Anybody who's worked for an investment bank or a consulting firm or an auditing firm over the summer, you've heard of FASB, Financial Accounting Standards Board rules. Governmental accounting standards are not consistent with FASB. They are set by another board called the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB. And the representatives on GASB, there was actually a very good editorial on this by David Crane and George Schultz last week in the San Francisco newspaper. GASB is staffed by representatives of these governments themselves. So it would be as though, it would be like having the FASB board populated by the CEOs of companies that are engaging in questionable accounting practices. It's just a very conflicted type of arrangement.